Hey Internet, it's Sarah. I'm just smashing up some broccoli. That's not true. This is weed. This is the weekly Ask Sarah. Well, weekly is in giant air quotes because I don't actually get it done every week. Live stream where I take your questions and do my best to answer them, but only if you ask them. I feel like this is going to be a little bit thin for a whole bowl, but I guess we'll see. That's Pippin. Failing any questions coming in, I will just sit here and be me for a half hour. Which is kind of the thing anyway here. But I'm still struggling to eat. I have continued to ask myself whether anything sounds like I can eat it, and the answer has been no over and over. I don't really know what to do about that. It's been the kind of thing where I'm asking myself like whether it's about having money or not, because I don't have a way to go buy food anyway. And it's not, I don't think. Because even if I'm like, okay, what if we could go get anything at all, and just throwing out ideas just with that, I'm still coming back with no on everything. I'm not entirely sure why. My best guess is just that I'm too anxious and that I need to rest or sleep or otherwise calm down. So, hopefully this will help. This is actually the first bowl I'm grinding up today, because the last one was from yesterday and I had a few hits off of it when I woke up at whatever, 9ish. And this is the first time since then that I have been needing more. I need to eat, but I'm very tired in a sort of existential way that is in the way of that right now, I think. So, hopefully this will help. Something someone asked during the week when it was not for an Ask Sarah was about this thing going on in Canada where some cis guy has filed his gender marker as female for insurance purposes. But he's also like not trans and not a girl and all this kind of stuff, just wanting to get that lower rate. And so my friend's question, if I recall, was like, what can the cis do about this, basically? Like, how could we verify whether someone is really trans? And I think part of the reason that everyone is so up in arms about trans people is because they kind of get that there isn't really a way to do that. That it requires something that our systems don't have, which is trust. You have to be able to hear someone saying, here's my experience of being, and accept that. Instead of saying, this isn't what I've been taught, therefore you must be lying. And if you cannot prove who you are according to these rules that don't allow for your existence, then you don't exist. But here I am. But I mean, it speaks to that kind of larger issue of the sort of over-reliance on rules and punishment in our society. We're not really interested in relating to each other or getting to know each other as human beings, as living things. We are interested in making use of each other in a utilitarian sort of sense, and practiced at being very angry with people who don't play along. You know, with this classism and dividing by wealth, material wealth. This is a little bit thin, so I'm going to grind up a little bit more. There we go. I set it over here. I feel like that's probably plenty. Oops. But I've said this kind of thing for a while, that like all this contract law and stuff, it's all dependent on people having the time and the energy and the resources and all of that to pick apart these contracts and really have any way to tell whether they're fucking themselves, you know? And unless you can afford people to look out for you for that, you don't. I had the same kind of problem when I went into just the administrative court kind of stuff around my license suspension. Even there, they have people whose whole job is just doing that all day, every day. And yet poor people are supposed to be able to come in without education in those things as well, and somehow defend themselves against this overwhelming and completely irrational array of rules. You know, like you learn about them for the first time as you are being told that you have broken them. And our society is like that, and we love saying we're a nation of laws. But that's kind of the problem. We are over-reliant on law and under-reliant on culture. We don't have a culture. We have decided to sell that out too, you know, privatize that too. And sadly, we have told the people who are evangelical fundamentalists that they're the ones who should be in charge of culture in America. And their culture fucking sucks. It's deeply misogynistic. It's incredibly racist. It's wildly paranoid. It's like actually devoted to the misery of all sorts of people. And for some reason we keep touting this as like a great example of humanity, while they keep cranking out like all of these abusers. Oh, I had a thought the other day. Let me see if I can stumble through some of it. It's the left trying to use authoritarian tactics to correct behavior of the base on the right without understanding, without backing up enough to look at and acknowledge and really get that they are already under authoritarian command, and that the only way to come at them with authoritarianism that will drive them away from their current authoritarian leaders is with more severe authoritarianism. And the reason the Democrats are failing is that they're trying to present something that is fundamentally anti-authoritarian in authoritarian terms, such as, you'd better vote for so-and-so. And that fundamentally can never motivate people who are already, for whatever reason, deeply anti-authoritarian. And it also doesn't work on people who are already in the middle of suffering constant authoritarian abuse, gaslighting, because part of that is to instruct the victim that anyone else who tells you anything is lying to you to manipulate you, because they want to hurt you, because they don't really care about you like I do, or whatever, however the line goes, you know? What the Democrats need to do, and they're not going to do it, so really it's the left, the progressives, somewhere out there, need to do, is figure out how to guide these people out of the authoritarianism that they have been brutalized into accepting as reality. And telling them that they're stupid and all of that, right? That's gonna I mean, whether it's true or not doesn't really mean anything, because the function of it is to reinforce what the abuser has told them, right? That these other people don't really care about you, they don't think highly of you, they think you're an idiot. They'll tell you to your face, they think you're stupid. This kind of thing, right? They start from a place of fundamentally thinking you're a horrible human being. And that may be true. An unexamined, look at it says that people just think that for no reason, right? They're truly hateful, rather than, well, they have concluded that because they've observed your harmful behavior for however many years, right? It's a different kind of math. Let's see. There we go. So, what are we at? 12 minutes, 13 minutes. So about an hour ago, while I was upstairs, lying on the bed and crying and feeling angry and petulant and beside myself and all this sort of stuff, I got an email from Joseph with the final 3 tracks from the album. So my intention is to listen through them a few times and then meet up with him and close the gaps in between the tracks and figure out how we'd like the album to flow. It's really close, and then from there it's mastering stuff. And I'm gonna guess he wants to at least take a crack at mastering it himself. But at that point I might try reaching out to some local people, like I think both of their names are Steve, actually. Is it? It's now I'm embarrassed because I feel like I might be conflating them somehow. But Steve Fisk, Steve Turnage. That sounds right. Is it Steve? Is it Steve Turnage? Now I feel like I'm getting it wrong. Anyway, local Seattle music luminaries, music producing luminaries, who are on my friends list because of connections through Grammy U and stuff like that. And to see whether they'd like to hear something, pick one track off of this new album to be like, would you like to hear a sample of what I've been working on? And if they're like, this is cool, let's hear more, then talk about maybe working together. I swear it's Steve. I swear both of them are Steve. I think I'm confused because when I met Steve Fisk, I met them both at the same time, but Steve Fisk is listed as Steven like elsewhere. So it's like Steven Fisk. Anyway. Is it Pete Turnage? I'm gonna ask these guys for help and I have like a 20-minute video of me not being able to remember their names. Like, if you need further proof that I'm the real deal and I'm that autistic, I don't know what to tell you. It's starting to get toasty in here. Hey Google, what's the weather?
Right now in SeaTac, it's 80 and mostly sunny. Today, it'll be sunny, with a forecasted high of 93 and a low of 63.
That's terrible, isn't it? Alright. Is that better? Now it's not aimed like right at the microphone. It's just hot in here or something. I still haven't eaten yet. I feel like I talked about that a little bit earlier on. Yeah, I did. I was asking myself what I would eat even if I had money. Even if I could just go someplace and be like, I want to go to this particular restaurant and buy whatever, like not thinking about the cost at all. Still nothing. I've been drinking a lot of water, but I might live stream in, well, not 12 minutes because I would have to take the time to figure out moving the songs and adding them to iTunes and this kind of stuff. But right after the stream, since it's not very lively and I'm not answering any questions really, I'm just babbling. I don't promote these streams. I'm like, it's more like letting people know, like, hey, this is a thing that I do and I'm practiced at it, and if you want to show up for the next one and have a question, you know, like at some point. Inviting more interaction, but I'm also like days like today where I'm in horrible shape and I don't feel like talking to anybody anyway because I just like I need to eat, I need to rest, and I don't know how I will do these things, and I'm just frustrated and upset and stuck, you know. This is more about just some sense of stability or consistency. Like I'd like to be able to let people know, like not only is the ongoing thing with the streams, like ask what's going on, you know, anytime, just chat whenever, but also that this weekly one is very much like, you know, sometimes people are like, you know, I've always wondered this, but I didn't want to ask because like I don't give a shit. I don't. I'll do my best to answer. How's that? It is strange to see these 9 tracks in a row. I am looking forward to listening to it all the way through and having the
Did you get your new song?
I did get the other 3 back.
Oh, sweet.
I'm trying to see whether my live stream is actually like running because my it's not the monitor. The monitor is working, but the checking on the live feed thing is like I'm trying to see whether, because there was a time when people were commenting and I was like, I'm I'm not getting any comments, so I don't have a way. But nobody, but people actually were commenting, and it wasn't showing it to me. That seems to not be the case right now, so that's good at least. I'm not missing any comments. But anyway, my point is probably the thing I do in about 9 minutes, failing any massive flood of questions and sudden like rush of people who are all in a clamor to get at the knowledge in my head. I will spend, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes sorting out, getting the songs moved around and relabeling them and all that kind of stuff. And fixing them up in iTunes, and then just run the stream, run the album. And so I might, when I do that, set up on my phone, since I can't run it simultaneously out of this, it starts feeding back on itself. Unless I want to like listen on headphones and stream it directly, and I kind of don't want to do that anyway because I don't really want to. I'd rather people get the tracks off the album and listen to it that way, or have some sort of like other way of getting to them individually, because especially when they're not finished like this, they're done mixing, but they're not mastered. They're like mostly done, right? So I don't mind people having a preview or listening in, because that's totally just part of the ongoing theme of here's my life, here's how things go, here's what's happening in my world right now, really. But what's happening in my world right now really is I'm working on an album and it's almost out, and I would like to like release it, you know. But this is exciting. This is at the point where I listen through it a few times, and I get we get it mastered, and then I talk about release from there, right? Like album art, photo shoots, fashion design stuff. Talk to like Megan or Lulu or whoever I've worked with before and see if they want to do any fashion stuff. Talk to John about doing makeup. Talk to people about concept stuff, right? Get people involved who want to hear the music and do that concept work, do that production work. I'll talk with some of these theater people as well. Like I know they're more theater oriented and not video production oriented, but in terms of conceptualizing stuff or developing not necessarily print media, but like 2D static media, you know, like some sort of cover art or you know, like a lyric sheet with a I don't know, a painting or something that goes with it, or something, you know what I mean? That sort of stuff is what I'll be engaging with people about now that I have all 9 tracks. The timing is wonderful because I have the show coming up Monday night, and I was feeling super not ready for it, and I'm still feeling super not ready for it because of things like my anxiety being so high that I cannot think of anything to eat, even if I just had food in front of me or enough money to go get it. And I kept coming back to, on the live stream earlier, understanding that this is an expression of the same thing, that my job is to rest and calm down, and that what I need to do is that, and that when I do that, the problem isn't really that there's nothing that I can eat. The problem is that I'm so anxious that there's nothing that I can eat. Right, so I need to do this work of calming myself down. Thank you, Plenty Desktop. And then ask myself again, you know, every hour or so, hey, does anything sound good to eat? And then I still have the additional obstacle of like, if what sounds good to eat is like, I want to go out to a Thai restaurant, well, that's wonderful, but I can't do that. So, like, what can I derive from that helps me think of something useful to do here, right? Is there something that hits whatever that is doing for me conceptually that makes it feel inviting? So, that sort of process. I'm gonna cry a bunch. There's no way I'm not gonna just sob my brains out listening to this album. But I'm looking forward to it. This rough cut. You don't get too much of a view on me of this, where I'm just sitting here and I don't really have anything else to do, but I feel sort of obligated to something and I'm just sitting here. I have 3 more minutes. I do this at the sandwich social, but I mean it's like at the end when no one's there, but there's like 15 minutes left. I'm like, maybe someone will show up. You know? I said I would be here, so I'll do my best to be there.
I got a question for you.
What's your question for me?
How'd you get so hot?
Well, first I think I was sort of talked into not really resisting strongly decades of really poor public policy that have changed the climate, resulting in weather today like, hey Google, what's the weather?
Right now in SeaTac, it's 81 and sunny. Today,
That's not
it'll
so
be
bad.
sunny with a forecasted high of 94 and a low of
That's
64.
fucking terrible. Look, they've added a degree.
94 degrees. That is as hot as I ever remember it being here.
I feel like an 81 degree high is kind of normal for today in any previous year.
Yeah, 80s would be good. A good nice
Like
day.
upper 80s is sort of an unusual hot temperature for this area.
Yeah, mid 90s is unheard of around here. That happens like once in a blue moon.
So for it, well, we had a red moon. Red moon.
Red
I was gonna say blood moon, and for some reason saying red made me go with a yeah.
Blood moon. Laurel. Yanni.
It's because the is up higher and it's the tongue position is closer for yeah. I made Adragan last night, which is my high elf captain. I immediately couldn't play her because we had weird drama happen, but I was pleased to create her and also chagrined even is too strong a word to confirm that they still don't permit special characters in your character name, even though they have little accented I's and A's and stuff on like all these NPC names, and it's very like setting of the world kind of stuff. So her name actually is the AE ligature, and then a DH R, and then 2 A's that are accented because it's supposed to indicate syllabic stress, and I don't actually know how these are used in whatever other languages make use of these letters, but the point is that she has nearly equal syllabic stress on all 3. Is the intended pronunciation. So I like thinking about stuff like that because I'm a linguistics geek, meaning things about linguistics and the way phonemes are formed and used and the way language is constructed and grammar and all that stuff is like fascinating to me, and I geek out on it. But I'm not a linguistics nerd. I'm not like a devoted student of the practical like workings of it. I just am like, I could be, but I'm not. I've said for a while that if I were to start over with like a clean GI Bill or whatever, some way to go to school like on a full ride right now, I think I'd study linguistics. I don't think I'd even study music. Like I'd probably minor in music or something, you know, like study theory. But I think my main focus would be linguistics because it's just so endlessly fascinating to me. And like part of why Discovery was such an amazing show for me is that they really went for it for kind of the first time that Star Trek has really gone for it like this, where when the alien race is talking amongst themselves without any humans around at all, they don't speak English. They don't speak any human kind of language. They're talking in their own kind of language, and it's fucking rad. Like, I have such an easier time buying that I'm, you know,
Your ears look pointy from here.
a fly on the wall. Do they?
Yeah, in the video.
That I'm-
Strangely, they didn't before, but all of a sudden they look just the way they're covered up with, like they could be Vulcan.
I was planning.
Elfish.
I was gonna say I was making the elves last night. So
you got both things going.
yeah.
Well, what are you know, Vulcans but space elves anyway?
You know, they're sort of like the sort of like fanatical devotion to logic. Is kind of like a futuristic robot-ish vibe on. Yeah, they kind of are space elves.
Yeah, pretty much.
Even their fucking ships
Yeah,
have that like elegant
Oh
like.
my god, yeah, everything
with
about
the circle and the Vulcan ships are beautiful.
I mean, they have all like this high council stuff too, right? It's like all exactly like the elfish hierarchies.
They should Star Trek should just shamelessly redo Lord of the Rings. Just
In space? Oh,
just completely shamelessly.
That would be so bad.
Have it be so transparently a
Klingons.
knockoff. No, they don't have to rename the stuff like that.
Right.
But really like having like, you know, whoever's like the head Vulcan, right? Like call a council of all of the federated all the races of the Federation, right? And they have their like their heated meeting.
Sarek is like Elrond or something.
Yeah. But, you know, somebody who's like an Andorian would be like the dwarves, right? The hot-headed Andorian, like, you know, says, "What are we talking about? Let's just destroy it." And pulls out his fucking phaser and shoots at it. And it's like, "Stop!" And it like refracts everywhere, right, or something. It's like the Star Trek version of all the same shit.
Oh my god, yeah. The Ferengi could be the hobbits. No.
They're like, why don't we just warp there? Why don't we just warp to that star system and launch it into the sun, right?
Because the use of the tardigrade has caused
It's
space-time continuum
It's
to
that the warp signature is too highly detectable or something. I don't know.
Well,
They really
that's what I
really
thought.
should just like, that would be
I
so.
think you're talking about the
I think like if I had the energy, I would just write this as like a few blog posts online, right? And just like summarize Star Trek.
Oh.
How do I even cross this? Lord of the Stars.
yeah.
Trek of the Rings. Trek of the Rings is good because you Star Trek of the Rings really because you're taking these rings through space.
Deity of the Nebula. Nebulae. Nebula.
Yeah. Was it? I mean, they've had these moments like Kirk faces down some creature that's 30 times his size, where it's just Gandalf, you know, telling the Balrog that he can't pass, right, and the bridge collides.
Kirk gets enough, you know, interspecial,
Space elves.
interzenial, whatever, you know, amorous activity going on, but that's not so different from you know Aragorn just sticking in his William whatever elf you can find.
It's like having sex with a butterfly. It's the time span of it, the time scale of it.
That would be so awesome, though. No, because for me, think about how much time I spend having sex. I'd be perfect for an elf. You'd be about right. Like, oh, they only live such a short period of time, but they spend the exact same amount of time having sex we do. This is how Aragorn was able to work that shit out.
That's actually not far off from the lore, as I understand it.
It's true. See, yeah, the star that burns half as long burns twice as bright.
Anyway.
Sorry. That was from Blade Runner.
Thanks for hanging out. And
How about I start this up? I'll go ahead and turn it on and all that. It works a little better.
I super thought that you like noticed that.
It was about as effective as a Play-Doh Fun Factory for smoking anything. I'm smoking this weed. It's like, should have had one of these as a kid. The Play-Doh Fun Bong, just like, for your junior smokers, you know, get them ready. Start on it right, you know.
Okay.
From Fisher Paraphernalia. Okay, sorry.
Thanks for hanging out. I probably will be back in like 10 or 15 minutes. Like I'm intending to. Are you trying to hit it again when it's still not on?
No. I didn't try to hit it. I didn't put the dab thing in there. I just breathed through the bong and made the bubbly sound.
You're such a child.
But you know, it takes one to know one.
I
Because
know.
it doesn't really take a child to know a child, because adults can figure that shit out too. But yeah, all right.
I don't say that in a disapproving
I
way.
don't take it. I mean, it's a compliment as far as I'm concerned. Thank you.
Myself, so.
The more childlike I can be, the better. Yeah, I don't mean the bratty, nasty, you know, terrible too kind of element. I mean just the inquisitive. I rarely had to discipline my kids. You know what? That's just what it is. They weren't like that because I didn't take them that way. I didn't perceive them that
That's
way.
childish.
Yes.
Childlike
Yes.
is good.
Childish
Childish
not so good.
is shitty.
And you know what? The thing about it is that what we call childish is really a misnomer, because I see that behavior exhibited by adults at least as often as I see it exhibited by kids.
Really, it is people who are being pushed farther than they are able to be pushed right then. And, you know,
Yeah, I'm
don't have a way to
capable.
push back.
I'm certainly capable.
I mean,
of
look
it.
at these toddlers throw the tantrum, and it's like, no big deal, because they're small and they, you know, they're not well armed, right? But you know, 50-year-old, 60-year-old dude throwing the same tantrum essentially, right? Everything needs to stop. I'm being pushed too far, too fast. I'm not being supported well enough. This isn't what I was told. I'm angry. I'm tired. I'm hungry.
Yeah.
I'm lonely.
Yeah.
All of it. But he's got money and guns and
Yeah.
you know, time to kill.
Time to
people
kill,
to
yeah.
kill.
Yeah. Well, I mean, or you know, it could just be you know, a member of the wait staff that is getting berated, or a you know, retail clerk that's getting just chewed to shit, you know, because their company sucks. I don't know. I mean, you know, there doesn't always have to be a gun, you know, in your hand, but people throw fits all the time. I mean, and I do it too. I mean, I have my meltdowns, and I'm never proud of them.
That's the thing, though, is if I'm doing my mindfulness practice well, like when I was going off on those people the other day for no real reason, or at least not what I was saying I was going off on them for, and I was like disconnected. Like I still don't think that I was missing. I still don't think that I was completely out in left field. I think I was responding to something. I just jumped the gun on calling out what it was, and that didn't work. But the point is, I recognize that
They had plausible deniability. Is that what you're saying?
kind of, and also that what I don't think what they said was untrue, but I also mischaracterized the thing that I was responding to because I was so tired and I had been fighting the other thing.
Right.
But the point is, without regard to their behavior at all, my behavior was shitty and flawed, and for those obvious reasons, right? That I was tired, that I was stressed out, that I was, you know, angry because I had just been fighting with these other people, or being attacked really, and trying to get away from that. And but the mindfulness practice stuff is not like it keeps me from ever being shitty.
No, fuck.
It's just that it helps me notice, like, oh wow,
They're
right.
I only adopted
I'm
mindfulness
not.
practices in the first place. I really kind of like,
You know?
feel attracted to them, you know, to as intensely as I do, because I've got this habit of speeding up and being oblivious and kind of living everywhere but the moment, and then causing all kinds of damage when I do. And so it was. Really,
That's what I noticed really when I look back on my whole past. Certainly, I could have been like less neglectful had I been able to be more present. I understand why I couldn't be, etc. But the mechanical aspects of it are I'm able to look back and see really the major function of my capacity to do harm is that I'm not here. You know, that I'm less aware than I would have had to be able to choose better. So
Yeah,
my
that's
only real
usually-
practice is to keep trying to be here. You know?
That makes sense. I mean, you seem to have a lot more probably. It's not that I don't. My experience of time is a little different than yours, I guess. But I have trouble staying in the right spot in time in my mind. You know, I'll be thinking about the past or the future.
That's how it is for me. It's just that there's all this other sensory stuff that comes along with it that makes it feel like an overlay or a complete like replacement of experience
that ends up memory kind of thing,
that ends up functionally being like I'm in them at the same time, and that I have trouble when it gets
well, your
really
sensei
bad.
memory is probably a hell of a lot stronger than other people's too, right?
Probably.
So,
and that when I'm really bad in this kind of stuff, it can be difficult for me to tell what's the most forward moment, right? Like where am I really? Not even the most forward, because sometimes I'm seeing things that haven't happened yet, right?
yeah, sure. Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, but like where am I, or when am I? And like the cats help, like independent things like that help.
Could I take a breather of your Darth Vader up?
It's not
okay.
hot, but
thank you.
thanks for hanging out. I'm gonna close this up and try to sort out the music stuff, and probably be back on as soon as I can after that. It's not gonna sound that great because I'm gonna have fans going because it's getting really hot in here, and I'm gonna have it's gonna be streaming onto my phone, so it's gonna be playing out of these speakers.
This will be good to get you in the mood for your show, though, and everything. Right?
I'm hoping that it'll help get my attention oriented that way, and like calm me down, and the repetition of it and stuff, and even if it's like helping me get in touch with the emotional stuff and crying, that'll be a relief in its own way too. And then at some point when I ask myself what I would like to eat, I'll have an answer besides nothing, and then it'll be more like what I would like to eat is such and such, well that costs blah blah blah, maybe I can just ask a couple people, hey, have you got $5?
Well, then I can do whatever I can do to support you too. I mean, if it's driving somewhere or whatever.
I mean, if you wanna,
up or,
I don't know. I mean,
whatever it might be.
yeah. I know you probably don't have a way to get a hold of any cash.
I wouldn't say that necessarily.
That's probably
it would be.
That's probably the biggest help, is to just have some well of resources
I would. I don't know for sure that I can. But if the asking of it would be painful, so I would rather not if I can avoid it.
The reality is, or the most likely outcome is not that I say. What would I like to eat? Oh, it's something here, and I have.
I understand that. I know that's where it's probably going, which is why I'm weighing the severity of need in terms of like, how do I need to make this ask?
Also, sometimes it happens that I'm like, you know what sounds great is turning on the oven and baking a potato, even though it's 94 degrees. I don't imagine that's gonna happen. But
I won't be baking any.
the point is that if I hit that point, whenever it is, where I'm like, okay, here's what would work food-wise, having no further delays at that point would help. So, thanks for hanging out. I'll be back shortly with the first run-through of the kind of rough. It's not even a rough draft at this point. They're mixed. It's like a first draft of this album. Just needs a little tightening up here and there of the mastering process and setting distance between tracks and all of that. So I'll see you shortly to share that with you. It's not going to sound that great because it's going to come into this. But if this is your jam, then this is where you can hear it. Bye, be safe.